Welcome to the Big O Show on the Overreaction Sports Network, powered by Believe.
Still the same damn kid from Oklahoma, same old dreams hanging off my shoulders, just wishing and waiting on a shooting star for all to see.
And now your host, straight out of Oklahoma, former Buffalo Bill, Jerry Ostroski.
I'm still the same damn kid from Oklahoma.
Welcome in, everybody. It is Thursday night. We're at 9 o'clock this week, Eastern Time, 8 Central. I apologize. We had a little college graduation celebration to go to today as my younger boy, Owen, graduated from the University of Tulsa. So we had to bump it back an hour for today's Big O Show. But, hey, we're here nonetheless to break down Sunday's matchup in Orchard Park. The 3-11, that is correct, folks, 3-11 New England Patriots come into Orchard Park to take on the 11-3 Buffalo Bills. Fresh off of a big win against the Detroit Lions. Bills are 14-point favorites. The over and under is 46.5. Kick got flexed to 425. Not quite sure why they did that, but that gives the Mafia a little bit of extra time to gas up and get ready for that AFC East matchup, that rivalry that we have all of a sudden dominated the last 5 matchups in this series. The Bills won the last one December 31st, the game that I was at. They win 27-21 against New England. They did lose October 22nd when we had that crazy 5-game losing streak, had to win a bunch of games to get into the playoffs last year, but obviously Buffalo loses 29-25 in New England, but they won the 3 games prior to that. So Bills dominating this matchup, this rivalry that we were on the other side of the lopsided series for quite some time for some dude named Brady and another guy named Belichick. We won't get into those guys very much, but obviously Bills playing really, really good football. We're going to break this game down a little bit today as we go along. And honestly, folks, when we get into the keys of the game later on in the show, this is one of those games that is, let's face facts. This is a human nature game. And when I say that, this is a game that the Bills should win handedly. But there's this little thing known as human nature, okay? Biorhythms, all that kind of stuff. If you're into that funky stuff, horoscopes, moon phases, everything else that people get into as far as talking about energy and chakra and all that stuff. But there is a little thing called human nature. We'll talk about that in our 5 keys of the game because really this is a game the Bills should not have an issue with. This is a game the Bills should dominate. Obviously, Buffalo has scored 90 points in their last 2 games, 30-plus points in 8 straight games. Obviously, defense having a little bit of issues right now. Defense, Bills score 90. Defense has given up 86 points in the last 2 games. And some hot hands as far as the Bills go. Khalil Shakir, 5+ receptions in 7 of his last 8 games. That Bills offensive line is just dominating right now, playing unbelievable football. We'll get into the injury report here in a second. We won't have Dr. Brad Bowen this week. Again, I apologize, Brad out because of me, but also the holidays as people are trying to cram those PT sessions in with him before Christmas Eve, before Christmas. So he's been incredibly busy. We didn't get our chance to get our schedules to mesh this week, but hopefully we'll get it back next week. But we'll talk about the injury report here in a moment. And the main guy on that offensive line that got dinged up a little bit last week with the head injury, Spencer Brown, we'll see if he's back. But that Bills offensive line has given up 0 sacks in the last 4 games. They have been stuck at 13 sacks given up on the season for quite some time now. So that Bills team O-line performing really, really well. We'll get into some other numbers before we get into our keys, some things we get into. Last week we dug deep into some analytics as far as the defense went week before the offense. We'll get into some individual stuff later on before we get into our keys of the game. But as I like to do before we talk about our injury report, kind of just give you some team rankings and how these teams match up before they play Sunday afternoon, 4:25 in Orchard Park. But right now, Buffalo Bills a 6-0 home record, 5-3 on the road. New England is 1-5 at home, 2-6 away from home, and points scored offensively. Bills come in second in the league, scoring 31.8 points per game. The New England Patriots, I'm not going to blame it on my dog, my guy, one of my best friends that I played with in Buffalo, Alex Van Pelt. But obviously, Alex Van Pelt is the offense coordinator for this New England team that has had just tremendous turnover and then no continuity whatsoever at the quarterback position, although I believe the guy that should have been playing for quite some time is now finally starting for New England. We'll talk about him and some of the things he can do, that guy being Drake Maye, obviously. But points scored by New England, 31st in the league, only 17 points per game. Points allowed, Buffalo comes in at 12th with 22.1. New England comes in 23rd, giving up 24.1 a game. Takeaways, again, Buffalo, unbelievable, phenomenal performance as far as takeaways go. Plus 18. They are first in the NFL. New England, not so good. Not Bill Belichick football. They are -7. They rank 25th in the NFL in their takeaway differential. Passing yards per game, Bills come in at 7th at 238. And here's where we talk about the quarterback situation in New England. They rank 32nd in the league, only getting 173 yards a game passing. Not very, very good, especially when you're talking about a team that just reaped the benefits of having obviously a Hall of Famer and some say the GOAT of all time, Tom Brady at quarterback. You look at rushing yards per game, Buffalo comes in 9th at 130. New England comes in 14th. Ramondre Stevenson, they do have him, big back out of Oklahoma, has been there a while. They come in 14th at 119 rushing yards per game. Defensive passing yards per game, Bills 25th, giving up 227 a game. Now, obviously, that number skewed over the last 2 weeks. Jared Goff throws for over 500. I believe Stafford threw for over 4 or had close to 4. So the last 2 games against the Lions and the Rams have really skewed that number, but not good for Buffalo in that defense. They come in 25th. New England gives up 216 yards passing a game. They're 16th. And then rushing yards per game, you look at the Bills, they're giving up 117 or 14th in the league. So a team that much maligned about how many rushing yards they give up on defense. We talk about that defensive line. They still come in about middle of the pack, actually a little bit better, 14th in the league. And then New England, they give up 127 rushing yards per game. That's good for 21st in the league. So you look at the numbers. Again, we talked about it when we started this thing. A game the Bills should dominate. Let's look real quick at the injury report. Spencer Brown, we talked about him a bit ago. He's listed on the report with a neck injury. Some felt it was a concussion or a head injury. I felt it was neck by the way he was walking off the field, kind of hanging that head to the side and kind of having a little hitch every now and then like it was catching on him. He was a full participant on Thursday, today. Obviously, Wednesday they had a walkthrough, and we got in depth about those conversations last week when people were having issue with Buffalo not practicing. And I talked about the significance of mental reps over physical reps this late in the season. And I think that this is, again, one of those instances. So today they had a full workout. Spencer showed up. He was there. Dion Dawkins, obviously, we know what happened with Dion. He was personally excused. Scary, scary scene out of his property. Thoughts and prayers to that pilot's family as there was a small plane crash at his property earlier today. He went out to check on it, and obviously that pilot lost his life. So thoughts and prayers to him, his family, and hopefully they're getting through that trying time. So he was not in practice today. Rasul Douglas, who did not make the trip last week to Detroit, he was limited again today with a knee. Same with Hamlin, limited with ribs. Kincaid was full, and obviously Kincaid full go, had a great game last week, just showed what he does with that offense when he's able to be in that lineup after missing 2 games with the PCL injury. So he was out there. Now, Matt Milano was limited. And this is the spot where I have a little bit of nervousness going into this game. You know, Terrell Bernard has been relatively healthy the last 5 weeks, knock on wood. We did see Spector a bunch last week, and many of you out there were wondering why Spector was playing. Well, obviously, Milano has the groin injury. Dorian Williams goes in, and we'll talk about Dorian. And I said this last week. I thought it was criminal that he was not getting more reps on that defense. And I'll give you a stat why I kind of think it's backed up, that I think it's criminal. I hope that he's okay. He was limited the last 2 days with that elbow. I hope he is able to play, because today there was some video out there of some pursuit drills and things like that. The media obviously gets to film a little bit of it. Pursuit is something, it's kind of it's an early drill that they do in practice to get guys loosened up. And basically what they do is they simulate a play, and the defense has specific angles that they need to take to run to the football. And they'll rally to the ball as a group. It's kind of teaching that pursuit and getting to the ball. Now, Milano was not on the field for those pursuit drills. We know the biceps injury, but obviously last week it was a groin. Hopefully he can go. I'm not holding my breath as far as Milano goes. And then also you would have to think, let's start thinking Patriots, Jets, Patriots, as we roll into this last 3 games of the season. Yes, we want to win those games. We want to try to get the highest seed we can. Obviously the number 1 seed is still, it's attainable. It got a lot harder with that Rams loss, but I think the Bills really need to be focused upon that 2 seed. I almost think the 2 seed's a little bit easier than the 1 seed. We'd have to go into Arrowhead, obviously, and win if we can get to that AFC Championship game. But still, look, it's playoffs. You got to beat the best. You're going to have to at some point anyway, whether it's at our place, at their place. We had them at our place last year and lost. So obviously we've won there before. If we have to go there, that's fine. But we really need to be precautious with some of these guys as far as the injuries go with these last 3 opponents, especially with these last 3 opponents not playing very well. And if you have a chance, go to The Athletic. If you don't have a subscription, try to find a way or find somebody that has a subscription and read that article about Woody Johnson and the Johnson family and just how things are behind the scenes with the Jets right now. Almost makes, I don't even know if I want to say almost makes, kind of makes the Jerry Jones and Jones family Cowboys ownership scenario seem somewhat normal if you read that article. So we play them in 2 weeks. You might want to check that out. But also limited was Tyler Rapp with the neck injury. Hopefully we get him back at the end of the game last week. As you remember, we were minus Milano, minus Williams, minus Cole Bishop, minus Hamlin, minus Rapp, minus Douglas. That linebacker core back, that back half of the defense was decimated with injuries last week, still found a way to win. But Braylon Spector also limited today with the calf injury, and then Dorian Williams also limited with the elbow. So that is the injury update as far as the Buffalo Bills go. Dinged up, hurt. Do I believe we have a ton of just long-term type injury stuff? I don't think so. I feel pretty good about it heading into this weekend's game. But like I said, with these two opponents we play over the next 3 weeks, we got to be smart. So just some odds and ends before we get into our keys of the game. We're moving along pretty quick today. Again, like I said earlier, this is one of these human nature games. I'll explain that to you here in a moment, but just some odds and ends. We talked about it earlier. Buffalo Bills offense, 90 points the last 2 games. Have given up 86 points in the last 2 games. No sacks in the last 4 games. Just some individual rankings amongst some players. And Josh Allen, okay, and just think about where these rankings are. Think about the points that this Bills offense is scoring, and then put it in the context of team concept, complementary football, everybody eats, all the cliches that Dell likes to make T-shirts out of. And think about it when you hear these rankings. But Josh Allen comes in 3,395 yards, ninth rated passer in the NFL. Ninth rated passer as far as yards go. Shakir, who is his kind of security blanket or his safety valve, big-time third down guy that Josh likes to go to on third downs. Khalil Shakir is the 15th ranked wide receiver with 774 yards in reception yardage. And a lot of that 774 is rack, run after the catch. Our number one quarterback is ninth. Our number one receiver is 15th. James Cook, our number one running back, 18th ranked in the NFL with 828 yards. Think about this for a moment. Our horses, our guys that we go to now, obviously, Cook is part of a three-headed monster. We'll talk about him and the keys to the game. But Josh Allen, who many regard as the best quarterback in football after Patrick Mahomes. And by the way, Mahomes went and saw Benny Hinn or whoever he goes to see, and he's had a miraculous recovery. I truly believe that Mahomes probably would do well in the WWE as far as being able to sell any sort of injury. As we know, he hobbled off last week, high ankle sprain, probably won't play the rest of the year. Carson Wentz is going to play. He's miraculously healed, and we will see Patrick Mahomes, or at least it seems like all indications are we'll see Mahomes Christmas Day as they try to play 3 games in 11 days, which to me is absolutely asinine. And thank you, NFL, for taking care of our players and pushing that player health agenda that you always do. But James Cook comes in 18th with 828 yards. And here's what I was talking about earlier. Dorian Williams. Matt Milano comes back from the biceps injury. Dorian is relegated to the bench. Now, obviously, Terrell Bernard has missed some games with injury, or he'd probably be up there close. I think Bernard has like 85, 86 tackles on the season. Dorian Williams is our leading tackler on the team. 100 tackles. Our highest rated defensive player as far as tackles go. Didn't play really hardly at all in the Rams game. Was getting some run last week in Detroit because of Milano injury and the fact we played a little bit of 4-3. So the last 2 games hasn't got much time. Still the leading tackler on that defense. So props to Dorian Williams, having a tremendous year. I truly, truly believe that he needs to be on the field more. Whether Milano is healthy or not healthy, he needs to be on the field. So before we get to the keys of the game, is like we always like to talk about, you guys have been absolutely amazing with your support of the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network powered by Believe. Our numbers continue to rise. Our viewership continues to rise. Subs continue to rise, and that is because of you guys. And we thank you from the bottom of our heart. We appreciate it. We enjoy making content, and we enjoy it even more when we know that it's appreciated and loved, and you guys are showing that love by how many watches we get and the subscriptions as far as the numbers, and those are going up weekly. So thank you very much. And if you haven't done it yet, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you know somebody out there that's a Bills fan, I'm sure you do. Call them, tell them, text them, tell them to sub it up, hit those buttons. And then also, if you don't get a chance to watch our shows live, we have our shows on podcast every morning, the day after those shows are on YouTube. So you can catch every show on podcast on all major podcasting networks. So please do check those out as well if you don't get a chance to watch the live shows. Now, New England comes in as far as offense goes. Drake Maye has taken over that quarterback position. Drake Maye is the starter. Jacoby Brissett is backing up, and then a guy named Joe Milton III. I can't remember where Milton went to school. I think he was a UCF guy, if I remember correctly. Those are your 3 quarterbacks. Here's a little something about Drake Maye that you need to pay attention to, and it'll be in our keys to the game. But Josh Allen has 484 yards rushing this season. We talk about Allen being an elite rusher at the quarterback spot. May comes in with 359 yards rushing into this game in Orchard Park this Sunday. Not far behind. Not far behind at all. So containing Drake Maye, proper rushing lanes, staying in your gaps, things of that nature, not giving up on plays is going to be important because he's young. He's not going to read through everything. He doesn't understand it yet. He's either a one and done or maybe gets to number 2, but he's really, really comfortable on his feet, and he's really comfortable running the football. Like a lot of young quarterbacks, he is also fearless, so we need to make sure we contain that. But we talked about Ramondre Stevenson at running back, and then Drake Maye's kind of leading receiver, the guy he goes to. You might be surprised. It's not Bourne or Boutte who are their starting wide receivers, but it's Hunter Henry, the tight end. So they like to feed the tight end. This is going to be a Taron Johnson game. Taron's going to have to really play well on Henry. I would expect that matchup quite a bit. So especially if Milano can't play with the groin, if he can't play with that groin injury, I would expect to see just a heavy hand of Taron Johnson on Hunter Henry. Defensively, they like to play in that standard kind of Bill Belichick 3-4 defense. 27 sacks, I believe, on the season. They can get to the passer a little bit. Jabril Peppers at free safety is kind of the biggest name. It's kind of a no-name defense, to be honest with you. We need to pay attention to a couple guys like Anthony Jennings and Jelani Tavai. Those guys are questionable, along with their safety, Kyle Duggar, Christian Gonzalez, and their nickelback, Marcus Jones. Those guys are all questionable. But kind of a no-name defense, but they do get after the quarterback, 27 sacks on the season, and they will compete. Now, Jerod Mayo, who's the head coach, he's kind of coaching for his life right now. The Kraft family's come out and said that they're evaluating him, and they're not afraid to make a move. Some people feel that they have already admitted that they've made a mistake. So I would expect they got nothing to lose. I mean, they're playing an 11-3 team on the road, divisional opponent. I would not expect them to lay down. I would expect a very, very spirited effort from the Patriots because they got a lot of pride in that franchise. And that effort is going to come right off from the opening kick. So before we get to our keys to the game, that kind of all goes hand in hand when I talk about, human nature. You just played the Rams in a game that you should have won. Then you go to Detroit. You play the team that most are saying is the Super Bowl favorite from the NFC, and which a lot of people are saying is the team that the Bills, are going to play in the Super Bowl. You go to their place, you play at Ford Field, you play extremely physical, and you beat them up to where they lose a bunch of players, and you win that football game. I don't care what the defense gave up. And we talked about that on the postgame show. A lot of those passes, passing yards and things of that nature had to do with the style of defense they went to in the second half, knowing that, hey, the worst thing we can do is give up 2-play drives and give them more clock to deal with, because it's all about possessions at that point. When you have a lead like that and you know your offense is going to score points, whether it be touchdowns or field goals, what's more important is the time on the clock than going and blitzing and trying to just shut the other team down. So kind of in sync with what Sean McDermott's about. He's a big percentages guy, doesn't like to get too out there as far as things go, although Babbage has probably blitzed a little more, done some things a little bit differently. Like, for instance, in that Detroit game, they bring the double corner blitz or double fire blitz, and it works. This is a situation where you don't want to just give up single 1 or 2 play drives. So that being said, human nature, when you play a poor opponent like New England is, okay, we talked about it, 3-11. Everybody expects you to beat them like a drum. Do you get lackadaisical? And that lackadaisical attitude can actually start during the week in your preparation. Are you preparing correctly? Are you doing the same film study? Are you doing the same things off the field as far as the rest, the workouts, the nutrition? Are you staying in at night? All those things. Because when you play a team like this that hasn't had much success, then you look at the newspaper, you're 14-point favorites, over/under is 46. Hell, you may get to 46 yourself, which that tells you a little bit of something. Bill scored 90 points in 2 games, and that over/under is at 46. So Vegas is trying to give you a hint, folks. Games like this, I don't call them trap games. I don't like the term trap game, but it is a human nature game. Do the Bills as a team stay up, stay focused, because they know they need to take care of business these next 3 to have a chance at that 1 seed and definitely solidify that 2 seed in the AFC for the playoffs. So keys to the game, we get to them. My number 1 key to the game, okay, left lane hammer down. All right, left lane hammer down. Something you hear a lot, especially in college football. But left lane hammer down means what I just talked about. It's attack, it's attack, it's attack. Do all the things you do as a good football team. Do all the things you've done all season long to get where you are. Don't change stuff up. This isn't the time to bring rookies in, play a bunch of guys to get experience. We're not about trying to rest people yet. You want to be smart, but I'm not necessarily talking about just resting them because you think that New England's a pushover. You do what you've done the whole season to get yourself to 11-3. So if that means running Josh Allen early, run him. If that means blitzing Drake Maye to confuse him and get him off his spot, blitz him. Those are the types of things that this Bills team needs to do. They have to establish that effort. They have to establish that mindset early so that other stuff does not creep in. And that's second half too. It's just like last week. You go in with a 21, 28-point lead, you don't come out from the locker room, with a towel over your hand, cuffing a hot dog, chilling. I mean, this is something where it's you got to get after it. And it's also the way you need to play so that you don't pick up stupid injuries. So that's my first key to the game. Left lane hammer down, man. Go out, play with great effort, great enthusiasm, be that Bills team we all love, take care of business from the opening kick. My second key to the game is crank up the 3 amigos. Who are the 3 amigos? That would be James Cook, that would be Davis, and that'd be Johnson. And Johnson, all of a sudden, against Detroit, has turned into this just amazing receiver. We all know that Davis can catch the ball out of the backfield really well. Cook has had flashes, but they've got to crank up the 3 amigos. They got to establish the line of scrimmage. That Bills offensive line needs to play physical from jump, establish the line of scrimmage, because here's the thing. A 3-4 defense, folks, when you hear this, and this is what's kind of crazy. People think, hey, you're playing 4 down linemen, right? That's more of a run-stopping defense than a 3-4. Actually, a 3-4 defense is much more of a run-stopping type defense than a 4-3. All right, this is a defense of, obviously, we talked about Belichick. He played it. If you remember, Vrabel, he was one of those stand-up guys on the outside. Willie McGinst was one of those stand-up guys on the outside. Seymour was one of those big 4 techniques. All right, this is a run-stopping defense. So they've got to establish a line of scrimmage. They got to do it often, and they've got to get these 3 backs going, and they got to get them cooking early, pun intended. But last week, James Conner from the Arizona Cardinals, he had 6.9 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns, had 110 yards last week. So this is a defense, even though they want to stop the run, they give up the run. They'll give up running yardage. We talked about it earlier. They're 14th in the league in rushing yards per game, 119. Last week, James Conner had 110 himself. So that's my second key to the game. They've got to establish the line of scrimmage, get this running game going, because this defense of the Patriots, and when you look at them, they do run some man, I think in 30% range, somewhere in there, 38, something like that. Man, they're at 38.5, but they will run zone 55.5% of the time. You're going to see a lot of cover 3 and a lot of cover 2s, middle open, middle closed. And that's 1 high safety or 2 high safeties. So that type of defense, and in Buffalo, because we run the cover 2 all the time, can muck things up a little bit in the passing game. So they've got to get that rushing game going and get that line of scrimmage established so they can make it a two-way game, meaning they can run it or pass it. Because that's one thing that New England does a really, really good job of, is confusing opponents and mucking stuff up. So Bills' second key to the game, crank up the three amigos. My third key to the game, they have got to confuse Drake Maye. How are they going to do that? Well, you got a Bills team. We just talked about New England and what they do coverage-wise. You got a Bills team that runs zone 74% of the time. All right, they will run some cover one, which is one high safety man underneath. They'll run a little bit of a man concept, but they are a zone team. We talk about it all the time. Two high safeties, what they like to be in. And honestly, being a zone team this week, with the way Drake Maye runs the football, I'm not opposed to that. Obviously, when you run zone, we talk about this all the time, talked about it in the post game, when you run zone coverage, your eyes are forward. Okay, your body position as a secondary man is forward. Everything's in front of you. When you're playing man, you're in a guy's chest. He runs a go to the sideline. You're turning your back to the line of scrimmage and running with that receiver. So therefore, if that quarterback gets out, you react late because your eyes aren't on the football. So I don't mind zone this week, but I would like to see us change some things up because they got to get him confused. And again, like we talked about, 74% of the time they're in zone, two high safeties, 54.8% of the time, one high safety, which cover three, 45% of the time. What can Bobby Babbage do to confuse Maye? Simulated pressure. Simulated pressure. That's the one thing that when you look at young quarterbacks that they have the biggest problems with is simulated pressure. Now, I don't know what Alex Van Pelt's doing with Maye. Is he giving him full reign of protection where he can change protection at the line of scrimmage? When I played, protections were changed by us. Now, they were either changed by us or they ran hot routes, which was when a couple guys came from one side, the quarterback and receiver knew he was getting the ball right away. Now, a lot of protections are changed to the line of scrimmage by these quarterbacks. So, Bills give simulated pressure, confuse this young quarterback. Don't let him get comfortable. And we talked about it earlier. He has 357 yards rushing. He's very mobile. He's a brave kid. He's young, so he's brave. Bills are going to have to find a way to confuse him. And that is my third key to the game. Fourth key to the game, games like this, human nature games, all right? We used to have a saying, don't polish a turd, all right? Don't polish a turd. And in this situation, the team that's coming in is 3-11, all right? That's the turd. And what I mean by that is don't give them hope. Don't give them short fields. Don't give them great field position because you turn the football over, okay? And my fourth key to the game is you got to protect the football. Bills have done an amazing job of that this season. We talked about it week in and week out, plus 17, first in the league, okay? You look at the Patriots, they're -7. They're 25th in the league. They do turn it over. A lot of that is interceptions by quarterbacks. But in a game like this where one team is really, really good and one team is not so good, you've got to protect the football. Bills, in a game that's going to be cold, the weather's not going to be great. I think I saw something like it's going to be 25 degrees. They've got to figure out a way to make sure that football is protected. The great Thurman Thomas, the Hall of Famer. If you ever watch Thurman play, I'll give you a quick story before we get to this last key to the game. The first thing that Thurman did when he played that year in Miami, before they came to Buffalo, he told all of them. He said, you look like a bunch of fools. You got hoodies on. You got hoods on under your helmets. You got all these sleeves. You got all this stuff. He said, take the stuff off. Wear the gear that you wear when it's hot, when it's cold. You wear the same stuff. And running backs and receiver-wise, a big part of that is, yeah, Under Armour's great. It's comfortable. Keeps you a little bit warmer. You don't hit that cold turf, right? You don't cut your arms up. But when you don't have football to skin contact, it's hard for a ball carrier to understand where that football is as far as how he's holding it. When you have Under Armour on there and it gets cold, it gets slick. And I don't know how many times when we played in Buffalo, John can attest to this, you saw guys go out there, running backs, second or third carry, they put the ball on the ground, and the next thing you know, they go over and the trainer's got a pair of scissors out, and he's cutting their sleeves off. Don't wear sleeves. Do what you do. Understand it's cold. Go put a jacket on. For you Canadian fans, put your toque on, get on the heated bench between series, and go out and do it again. It's just what you got to do, and that's how you protect the football, man. You got to have skin to football contact. So that's my fourth key to the game. Protect the ball. My fifth key to the game, our defensive line has to continue where they left off last week. Ed Oliver and company have to have another great week. They got to hit May. They got to hit May often, and they got to finish rushes. We had 3 sacks last week, should have had about 8. For somehow, some way, Jared Goff got out of the pocket. I don't know how, other than we did not finish rushes. So they've got to finish rushes. They got to get Ramondre Stevenson on the ground. They got to play physical. Now, there were some things that were talked about this week, and I saw it in the comments a little bit ago, talked about defensive line stunts and things like that. Third down stunts have been a thing forever, okay? Defensive people call them stunts. Offensive linemen call them games. Whether it's an ET, okay, when you hear something, you'll hear these guys talk about, we're going to run an ET. Well, that means the end comes inside and he goes first. He occupies the lineman, and then the tackle loops around. ET, end first, tackle second. Then they'll run TEs where the tackle goes first and the end loops around. They'll even run NTs like nose tackle, inside games in the inside 3, both guards and center. So those things have been going on. Obviously, the Bills have an advantage athletically up front as far as their defensive linemen go. That's something they should continue to do. Now, you can run stunts in the run game as well. You can go from the outside shoulder of an offensive tackle and at the snap of the ball, go all the way across the guard into the A-gap, which is between the guard and the center. And then that nose can drop out or he can loop over the top. There's different things you can do in the run game as well. I think running games and running stunts by this defensive front is a good thing. That's something they do really well because of their athleticism. So if that's some stuff they did a lot of last week, they need to continue that this week. But again, that D-line has to continue where they left off. Ed Oliver and that crew have to assert themselves early. That goes up to number 1, left lane hammer down. It's not just the offense, folks. It's the defense as well. So those are my keys to the game. Number 1, left lane hammer down, do what we do, attack from the start. Number 2, crank up the 3 amigos, Cook, Davis, and Johnson. Have to have big games. We got to establish that line of scrimmage. 3 is confuse Drake Maye, whether it's coverage-wise with Bobby Babich changing coverages up, showing one coverage, dropping to another, whether it's simulated pressures or blitzes. They've got to confuse the young quarterback from North Carolina. My 4th key to the game is protect the football. No turnovers. Remember, when you use that term, don't polish a turd. Tell them where that came from. That came from me. And then also my 5th key to the game is that defensive line needs to continue to roll and set the tone for these last 3 games as we go into the playoffs. So there you have it, folks. That is the Big O Show for this Thursday. Again, we came on an hour later because of the graduation event I was at earlier with my son graduating from college, University of Tulsa. We now have 3 Tulsa grads in this house, and then a Drake grad as well. But we will be on Sunday after the game, and hopefully it's a lot of running, and the game's done early so we can get on as early as possible. Tomorrow, if these walls could talk, those guys will be on. And again, Sunday post-game. Monday will be the off-tackle show with John Fina. By the way, if you didn't catch this week, it was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal show by John. Christmas Eve is Tuesday. We're trying to figure out if we get somebody to do a tape show earlier, like on Monday, so we can play it on Tuesday. We'll let you in on that as we get a little bit closer to Tuesday. But Tuesday's Christmas Eve. Obviously, Wednesday is Christmas, and I think we're talking about maybe having a special edition of the Hump Day Hotline, and we'll let you in on that as well. And then, of course, Thursday I'll be back the day after Christmas to talk about that Jets game the following week. So, again, folks, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We appreciate you. This has been the Big O Show on the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network, powered by Believe. Folks, we appreciate you, man. Thanks for all the love and support. And as always, man, much love. Go Bills.
I'm still the same.